In the first part of this series, we focused on changes in legislation and how DMPD says they are moving forward to help unify the city. Now we're looking into the hurdles of the Black community, as well as the resources that are looking to make it better and what needs to change to unify the community.
When you have a more diverse group of people who are saying, we're looking, we're watching, we want to make sure that you're accountable and that you're treating everybody right.
Betty Andrews, president of the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP chapter, is hoping that more diversity means more transparency. There have been changes in legislation and more accountability on police years prior, but especially after the 2020 protests. Programs and outreach have changed too, including approaches to accountability from city government to organizations.
There is a committee that has the responsibility of informing our legislators on criminal justice. So what did we do? We went to that committee and found out that there were some challenges. I'm going to say challenges, but more so that they needed the input. They needed our voice.
So the education part looks like consulting with legislative groups about perspectives of color and organizations like Des Moines Police Department. DMPD says they've had implicit bias training for several years, reevaluating what the community needs. But what may be missing is community participation.
I really think what we need to do is work hard on this next training with regards to the community and try and make sure that we're bringing the community in and having those interactions, because I really feel like, as was mentioned earlier, it's really powerful when you can have the officers meet with different representatives from the community and learn about each other, and or at least have some really, in many cases, difficult conversations.
Gene Hansen and Chuck Singstock helped build the curriculum for implicit bias training. Although they admit there are helpful moments, they also believe there are deeper perspectives that need to grow.
You see a scene like some of the officers kneeling with some of the protesters, and it's so powerful in that moment, that in that moment they are together, and in that moment they are seeing each other as people. You're a person and I'm a person.
Which can be seen as a moment of respect. But Betty Andrews says how that gesture translates to everyday life will be the true test of change. In the meantime, Andrews says they're organizing and educating in order to meet the pillars community organizers in this movement have constantly asked for. Some include an alliance formed between the city and social activist groups, a stop to racial profiling, restore voting rights to felons who have done their time, and decriminalizing marijuana.
Traffic stops. African Americans are stopped way exponentially more than white people. So all of those things matter.
Among other disparities, the ACLU reports that Black people were more likely to get arrested for a marijuana possession in every state. And in some states, they were 6 to 10 times more likely in 2018. Montana, Kentucky, Illinois, West Virginia, and Iowa were the states with the highest racial disparities in marijuana possession to be arrested more than white people. DMPD sent us a statement in part to the response to medical marijuana arrest. Quote, there is most often a triggering event that brings the officer into contact with the person, and the possession of marijuana charges are incidental to the purpose of the contact. We will continue to be appropriately aggressive in our efforts to eradicate drug dealers from our neighborhoods. MedFarm believes their program could be a good solution to legally get marijuana for medical purposes, but more people need to know about it. Specifically, more access to communities of color.
Is because MedFarm, and I think the medical cannabis program in Iowa, sees firsthand that minority participation in the program is extremely low, if not non-existent. And we think that perhaps, the task force was onto something by talking about this topic, because there's probably a lot of minorities, justifiably so, given the impact that prohibition's had on them over the years, that are very hesitant to participate in this program that's legal and overseen by the state.
MedFarm took years to develop in Iowa, going from a little over 1,000 participants in the first year to a little over 6,300 this year. And now their focus is to get the knowledge of the program to Black communities in hopes of being part of the solution when it comes to a decrease in Black arrests.
The things that used to be in place that is no longer is that you used to not be able to have had a felony on your record in order to be a patient. They removed that in 2020. That the legislature removed that prohibition. That's been a good thing.
If someone wants to take part in the medical marijuana program, they need doctor approval for specific ailments like PTSD and chronic pain, a way to legitimately possess marijuana. While the first priority of the medical marijuana program was to add approved ailments, the focus has shifted to outreach.
This work is hard. This work is draining, and people are not getting paid to say these things and to share their experiences. So it is difficult work, but I think that as citizens who want to see things improve, and of course as Black people and people of color who want to see things improved, we're absolutely for doing that. And when we see that that is effective, that's cool.
Consistent work, conversations, and outreach. The same elements continue to move us forward. Although many activists are sure we have a long way to go in policy, many are optimistic that maybe if we stop long enough to just listen without the intention of responding, we can really hear each other.